Hey, Misha the Turtle here, talking the Traitors, Season 3, Episode 6. This episode, I'm left wondering, what are they doing with Carolyn? I feel like she's not getting a fair shake here, and I wanted to primarily focus on that. Wes ended up being voted out in a 7-6-1 vote, with 6 votes going to Boston Rob, and 1 vote going from Carolyn on Danielle. Now, I don't think Carolyn has played a perfect game by any means. I think that there's some moves she's made that have probably put a bigger target on her back because of her more emotional, and that she describes as emotional gameplay style. That being said, that's how Carolyn plays, is she wears her heart on her shoulders, and you take the good with the bad when you kind of watch her as a strategic player. Now, I'm looking at what Carolyn's doing, and I think she's reading the situation right the last couple episodes. Boston Rob is more than willing to get rid of a traitor if it serves him and keeps him in this game another week. Regardless of if Carolyn went after him or not, she's at risk with Boston Rob in the game. Now, that's 1/3 of this remaining traitors group, right? And who is the other person? Danielle, who literally the day before was intentionally spreading Carolyn's name among pretty much the entire house. She also made up a lie about Carolyn saying that she wanted someone voted out or murdered or whatever it was, and it wasn't true. Like so Carolyn said something similar to that in the Traitors tower, but she never said it outside the tower. So Danielle literally just made up this lie. Carolyn called her out on it, and also I think she called her out on it in 2 main ways. First, she needed to reestablish herself as a strategic player and defend herself at the overall roundtable for the banishment. Even if Carolyn was not at risk of being banished that night, it was primarily looking like it was going to be Boston Rob versus whoever was targeting Boston Rob. Even though Carolyn wasn't at risk then, she would be at risk possibly in the future. And Danielle had been actively gunning for her. So I don't blame Carolyn at all for calling out Danielle there, because the facts lined up and the emotion lined up. So people were looking at this and seeing, a very emotional Carolyn who was not acting erratically, because Carolyn seems to be acting erratically all the time to them. They kind of view her as a spaz, which I think is kind of a sad way to view it. But I think, Carolyn plays, she's able to play into that though. And I think that part of the move is right. Now, actually casting a vote on Danielle, I don't know if that one was right. I think that Carolyn, if I was her, what I would have done was I would have tried to vote with Boston Rob, and then just go to Boston Rob and be like, look, we're both Survivor players. I didn't like how you handled Bob the Drag Queen being voted out, but I'm willing to work with you, Boston Rob, here, because Danielle is actively coming for me. You have to agree that she is a threat because she's willing to throw out your name as well if needed. Why don't we just go for Danielle here, knock her out? And Carolyn will be able to do that a lot better, or be able to reestablish, or I guess establish in the first place, trust with Boston Rob if she was willing to vote with Boston Rob that night against Wes. Let me be clear. It was going to be either Wes or Boston Rob by the time the votes were coming around. Carolyn was smart enough to see that. Instead, she casted the spite vote on Danielle, which even if she very strongly believed Danielle was the traitor, I think that the right move would have been to vote for Wes. Another thing, this just gets into Carolyn's style. Sometimes, the good with the bad. Sometimes she does things like takes out the shield during the game, and she doesn't discuss it with her teammates first. It's like the teammates would have wanted to discuss who got the shield. But you know what? Carolyn comes from Survivor. You take the advantages, like you do. And that's what a faithful who was concerned about their own murder would do. So people were saying, oh, Carolyn's not at a risk to be murdered. Well, you're seeing the traitors do everything from going after people that would be obvious targets to murders to possible smoke screens, to maybe someone like Carolyn that would cause chaos if they murder her. There are reasons in a hypothetical world where Carolyn is a faithful to just grab that shield and hold on to it. I think that there's a lot of people in this house that are kind of bullies. They come from some of these Bravo shows and whatnot. They come from, the core groups, I guess. And they look at Carolyn as like, this person that shouldn't be here, or this spaz and whatnot. And I think it's sad. I think Carolyn's a very strong Survivor player. And I think that, had she been able to articulate her case better than in the final tribal council, I think she would have had a really, really strong chance to win that season. And guys, there's spoilers here, obviously. But, I'm looking at all of this and I'm sad because I think the editors too I think even though Carolyn's not playing a perfect game, I think she's reading a lot of this right and is a fighter. Yet I'm watching these episodes and they seem to focus more on Carolyn's facial expressions and seemed to cut out a lot of her logic or her confessionals that would probably show just how strong a game player she is. So this is Misha here. I just watched the season 3 of the Traitors. I'm focused primarily on episode 6 here, but also I touched on some of episode 5 and the earlier episodes. Let me know your thoughts. Please like, subscribe, follow. We're on all of the platforms, TikTok, YouTube, you name it. So check us out. Later, y'all.